Dearly beloved, I spent the better part of this past weekend watching television. I was glued to it. I could not turn away, simultaneously watching two wildly different events unfold before me. Despite having much else to do, I couldn't look away. I simply could not believe what was unfolding before my very eyes. First, on Saturday afternoon, I watched transfixed as NASA and SpaceX launched from American soil for the first time since 2011, astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken into orbit aboard the Dragon capsule. What a moment for America. What a moment for humanity as we continue to seek to understand and make sense out of the larger universe God has created for us, placed us in, and invited us to explore. Then yesterday came footage of the docking of the Dragon capsule with the International Space Station. With my very own eyes, I watched American astronauts exchange handshakes and hugs with cosmonauts from our once sworn enemy in Russia. I don't know about you, but I got teary-eyed a couple different times watching it happen, trying to explain the significance of it to my son, Stuart. However, intermingled with these tears of joy were stinging tears of grief, sorrow, and lament as I reflected on the senseless killings of people of color by police and watched our nation respond. Over and over again, I watched replays of George Floyd's death at the hands of those in uniform whose sworn duty it was to protect his life and the lives of all of those who live in Minneapolis. I watched as hundreds spilled out of their homes and into the streets, distilling the psalmist cry of old, love and truth will meet, justice and peace will kiss, into no justice, no peace. Their heartbreaking calls remind us that there simply can be no peace without justice. Their heart-rending cries remind us that for too long, too many people of color in our land have suffered disproportionately. They've suffered disproportionate levels of police brutality and generalized systemic racism. I also watched as a very small number took what was begun in peace and transformed it into violence and destruction. Finally, not to be lost in all of this are also significant missteps and misstatements made and carried out by those who've been elected to lead us and care for us. Troubled tears poured forth repeatedly and unceasingly throughout the weekend. All of that said, what, if anything, might these two very different events hold in common? Perhaps the answer lies in their commentary on human nature and what we, fashioned in the image of God, are capable of. On the one hand, working collaboratively and drawing upon the best of American ingenuity and intelligence, rocket scientists and engineers designed a rocket capable of delivering human beings with pinpoint precision to a structure orbiting the Earth at 17,150 miles an hour. Clearly, we are capable of amazing things. And yet simultaneously, on the earth below, systems of evil, injustice, and oppression rear their ugly heads yet again, demonstrating that while we are capable of so much good, we are also able to do immense and terrible harm. The sin of racism runs deep. It runs deep in our nation's DNA. And while we have made strides, the recent killings of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, just to name the most recent, remind us that we have not yet made a full reckoning with our collective national sin. We have not yet figured out a way to be the people of God that God dreams us to be. So as a people called and committed to following the example of Christ, where do we go from here? How do we respond? What might be a next faithful step? After a prayer and reflection, here's one thing that's just welling up within me. As I listened to the commentators react to the SpaceX launch, one shared, I found this fascinating, just how much blood, sweat, and tears went into the construction of the Dragon capsule. Every detail. He stated that pictures of the two astronauts, Hurley and Behnken, were literally attached to every single work order. Every nut, bolt, and seal that was designed, purchased, installed, and inspected, and ultimately approved had their two faces affixed to it. Why? This was done to ensure that no person involved with a project at any level, at any moment in the process, could forget that there were very real, flesh and blood, human lives on the line, and that there was absolutely no room for error. So what if? What if going forward, pictures of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, what if pictures of them were posted in every police car in America? What if their photos hung in the halls of every branch of government, local, state, and federal? What if their photos hung in our church alongside our photos of Jesus, those biblical heroes, and the saints of old? What if their photos were attached to our Bibles, our songbooks, and our prayer books? Perhaps it would keep us from ever forgetting that all day, every day, there are real flesh and blood, human lives on the line here on this earth. Perhaps it would remind us to dedicate our own lives to ensuring that, as the psalmist says, peace and justice will kiss. Perhaps it will hold all of us accountable to living the command to love our neighbor, stranger, friend, and neighbor too. He loves them as he loves you. In closing, on this National Day of Mourning, and in the aftermath of Pentecost, in the aftermath of this ruinous event of the killing of George Floyd, I want to invite you to do 4 things with me. First, I want to invite you to listen. Listen to the cries of our brothers and sisters of color. Their pain is real, and it deserves to be heard. Listen. Second, I want to invite you to lament. Lament the state of things. Lament the senseless and needless use of police brutality in our land. Lament rampant and divisive racism. Third, I want to invite you to learn. Learn all you can about systemic racism and oppression. Learn about white privilege and its impact on the way things are. The reality is that we are a predominantly white United Methodist congregation. We do have members who are people of color, and they can feel marginalized even in our midst. I want to invite you to learn about white privilege and the ways that it colors our world and study more about it. We're going to provide you some resources to be able to do that. Finally, I want to invite you to love. We are capable of so much. We've put people on the moon. We've recently put people on a rocket and allowed them to catch up with the International Space. We are capable. We can do this. We are capable of loving like Jesus. We are capable of being one with Christ, one with each other, every child of God, and one in ministry to our community and to all the world. May the peace of Christ dwell richly in you this day and forevermore. Yours in prayer, yours in solidarity, and yours committed to making this a world that is reflective of the kingdom of God as God intends it. Finally, just one other quick note that's been developing throughout the day. If you find that you need space to come together with others in the life of our church, to share your feelings, to ask questions, and to show support and compassion in the midst of all that's unfolding, I want to invite you to join me, our pastoral team, and some other leaders in the life of our church for a virtual vigil of prayers and peace this Thursday at 7 p.m. We'll be sending out more information about how you can join in that virtual vigil. Until then, God bless and Godspeed.